Have you ever stood in front of a mirror, staring at yourself and wondering, how did I get here? That's what Tom asked himself one cold Detroit morning, just before his life took a turn he never saw coming. A few months back, I met Tom Miller at a small diner on Woodward Avenue. He sat by the window, sipping black coffee, his hands rough and marked from years of fixing engines. When he started talking, it wasn't about cars. It was about his heart, and not in the poetic way. His heart was failing him, and he knew it. He told me, "You know, I could rebuild a V8 engine blindfolded, but I couldn't fix my own body." That line hit me like a wrench to the chest. Tom's story isn't just about heart disease. It's about how one man found hope again through 5 simple foods that changed everything. Foods that helped him fight back, one bite at a time. If you've ever struggled to eat right, or if you've been scared after a doctor's call, maybe you'll see a bit of yourself in Tom's story. Have you ever felt that same fear? The kind that makes you rethink every choice you've made? Share your thoughts in the comments. But before I tell you about the 5 heart foods that saved his life, let's go back and see how he got here. The boy he once was, the man he became, and the lessons his heart taught him along the way. If you've faced something similar, let me know below. And don't forget to subscribe if you believe everyone deserves a second chance at good health. Tom Miller was born in the summer of 1957, right on the east side of Detroit, back when the city still hummed with the rhythm of factory whistles and Motown music. His father, Harold, was a line worker at a Ford plant, and his mother, Ruth, ran the kind of kitchen that always smelled like cornbread and Sunday gravy. Tom grew up in a small 2-bedroom house where the walls carried the sound of laughter, radio tunes, and the distant hum of engines from the auto shops down the street. As a boy, he was always curious. The kind who took apart his toy cars just to see how the wheels turned. His dad used to shake his head and say, "Tommy, you got grease in your veins, boy." School wasn't really his thing. He wasn't a troublemaker, but his mind wandered. He'd stare out the window and dream about cars, big, beautiful machines that could take you anywhere. He spent most of his afternoons at a corner garage owned by an old mechanic named Mr. Dorsey. The man had hands like sandpaper and a voice like gravel, but he took a liking to young Tom. "Engines don't lie," he used to say. "You treat 'em right, they'll run forever." Those words stuck. They became the kind of wisdom Tom carried into adulthood. Simple, honest, dependable. His mother, though, tried to balance that with tenderness. She'd call him in for dinner. Mashed potatoes, fried chicken, biscuits dripping with butter. Meals made from love, not from health books. Back then, no one talked about cholesterol or blood pressure. Food was comfort. Family was everything. And tomorrow always seemed far away. He didn't know it then, but those early days, the smells, the sounds, the simple joys, were shaping not just the man he'd become, but the heart he'd one day have to fight to save. By the time Tom hit his teenage years, Detroit was changing. The music was louder, the streets rougher, and dreams felt both bigger and harder to reach. He was 15 when his father first let him help change the oil on the family's old Chevy. That day, Tom felt something click deep inside him, like he'd found the language he was meant to speak. School faded into the background. While his friends chased girls and football trophies, Tom was under hoods and engines, covered in grease, listening to the steady rhythm of pistons and timing belts. He loved that sound. Predictable, dependable, unlike life, which was starting to feel confusing. His dad, though proud, worried. "Son," he'd say, "fixing cars is good work, but don't let it fix you. You're meant for more." But for Tom, the garage wasn't just work. It was freedom. It was where he felt seen. At 16, he got a part-time job at Dorsey's garage, the same old shop where he'd hung around as a kid. Mr. Dorsey became a mentor, teaching him more than mechanics. "Engines, like people," he said one evening, "need the right balance. Too much fuel, and you burn out. Too little, and you stall." Tom didn't know it yet, but that advice would come back to him years later when life, and his heart, started running on fumes. He graduated high school with average grades, skipped college, and jumped straight into the workforce. By 18, he was earning his own money, proud, independent, and full of that Detroit grit. He thought he had it all figured out. But as every man learns, life doesn't always stick to your blueprint. Sometimes, the road curves before you even see the sign. In his early 20s, Tom's world revolved around two things: engines and adrenaline. He worked long hours at the garage and spent his nights cruising down Woodward Avenue in a '69 Mustang he rebuilt himself. It wasn't just a car. It was his pride, his identity, his escape. But even as his career picked up, love found a way to catch him off guard. Her name was Linda, a waitress at a diner near the shop. She had a laugh that could cut through the noise of any bad day, and she loved that he smelled like motor oil and coffee. "Smells like an honest day's work," she'd tease. Their connection was fast, like two spark plugs firing in sync. Within 2 years, they were married. Money was tight, but love filled the gaps. Tom worked overtime, sometimes taking on weekend jobs just to keep the bills paid. He dreamed of opening his own shop someday. Miller's Auto Service, in bold letters. A place built from sweat, not loans. But dreams, like engines, can sputter when life throws sand in the gears. His mother passed away from a stroke in his mid-20s, and grief hit him harder than he expected. That was when the late-night eating started. Comfort food, fast food, anything to fill the silence. Still, he pressed on. Detroit was tough, and so was he. But those years planted the seeds. Stress, exhaustion, greasy takeout, too many cups of coffee. Habits that seemed harmless then, but would come back years later, quietly corroding the machine that kept him alive, his heart. He didn't know it yet, but while he was fixing everyone else's engines, his own was slowly breaking down. One burger, one missed doctor's visit at a time. By his early 30s, Tom was living the Detroit dream. A steady job, a small brick house on the west side, and 2 kids who thought their dad could fix anything in the world. His wife, Linda, worked part-time at a local grocery store, and together they built a life grounded in simple things. Sunday pancakes, backyard barbecues, and car rides to Belle Isle. Tom finally opened that garage he used to dream about. Miller's Auto Service. The first few years were tough, but he never complained. He'd leave home before sunrise and come back long after the streetlights turned on. His hands were always blackened with oil, his back always sore, but his pride ran deep. Hard work never killed anybody, he used to joke with the guys at the shop, but that wasn't entirely true. Between long hours, skipped meals, and coffee that could peel paint, Tom's body was taking the hit. He started putting on weight, brushing it off with, "It's just part of getting older." At home, Linda tried to keep him eating right. Baked chicken, vegetables, salads. But he'd sneak out for burgers and fries, telling himself he'd burn it off at work. He didn't realize that stress was quietly building pressure inside him, like an engine running hot with no coolant. Still, he loved being a provider. When his son graduated high school and his daughter started college, Tom felt proud beyond words. But behind the pride was exhaustion, a quiet ache in his chest he never talked about. He'd look at his family around the dinner table and think, "I just need to make it through this week." He didn't know that someday soon, his body would remind him that you can't outrun years of wear and tear, not even with the strongest engine in town. Life has a way of testing even the toughest folks, and for Tom, those tests came one after another. The economy hit Detroit hard in the late 2000s. Business slowed, and customers who once came in for full repairs started asking, "Can you just make it run a little longer?" Tom tried to keep his workers paid, even when profits disappeared. He sold his beloved Mustang just to make payroll one month. That broke something inside him. The garage had always been his pride. Now, it was just survival. At home, things grew tense. Linda worried about bills and Tom withdrew into silence. He'd sit in the garage late at night, staring at half-finished cars, lost in thought. That's when the chest pains started. At first, it was just tightness, a dull pressure after long days. He ignored it, like most men his age do. Then came the night he collapsed in his driveway. Luckily, his neighbor saw him fall and called 911. The doctor's words were simple but sharp. "Mr. Miller, you've had a mild heart attack. Your arteries are clogged, and your cholesterol is through the roof." It was the first time Tom felt fear, real fear, not of losing money or business, but of losing time, of not walking his daughter down the aisle or holding a grandchild someday. The hospital stay changed him, but only for a while. He promised to eat better, take his meds, rest more. But as months passed, old habits crept back in. The long hours, the greasy food, the late nights. He was fighting to rebuild his life, but deep down, he knew something was still broken. He just didn't know yet that life was about to hand him another chance. One that would start not in a hospital, but in a grocery aisle, staring at 5 simple foods that would one day save his heart. After his heart attack, Tom tried to slow down, at least for a while, but men like him, built from grit and duty, don't rest easy. Within a year, he was back to running Miller's auto service full-time. The business had started recovering, thanks to loyal customers and word of mouth. For the first time in years, Tom could breathe a little, at least financially. He took pride in his comeback. Folks around town respected him not just as a mechanic, but as a man who never quit. He even appeared in a local newspaper story titled "Detroit's Heart of Steel." But behind the strong image was a man pushing himself harder than his body could handle. The truth was, every success came with a cost. Tom's days stretched from dawn to dusk. His diet was a steady loop of donuts, gas station coffee, and drive-through sandwiches. He'd joke that the grease in his veins kept him running, but at night he'd sit in the dark kitchen, rubbing his chest, feeling that familiar pressure again. Linda noticed. She begged him to see a doctor, but Tom brushed it off. "I'm fine, Lynn, just tired." The thing about pride, it can be as dangerous as disease. Still, he kept pushing, fixing cars, helping neighbors, paying bills, building his business into something solid. Yet, he was losing something else quietly. Time with his wife, dinners with his grown kids, the softness of life beyond work. Years passed, the trophies of hard work. The house, the business, the reputation, all stood tall. But inside, his body was like an old engine running on borrowed time. And one day, when he least expected it, that engine started to sputter again, reminding him that even the strongest machines eventually need rebuilding. By his mid-50s, the world around Tom had shifted. His son had moved to Chicago with his own family, and his daughter was teaching at a local elementary school. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt too quiet. The garage, too, though still busy, seemed slower. Maybe it was the city, or maybe it was him. Linda had grown patient over the years, but she'd started worrying more. "Tom, we're not 20 anymore," she'd say softly, handing him a plate of salad he'd push aside for something heartier. He'd smile and tell her, "You eat the rabbit food. I'll handle the heavy lifting." It was said in jest, but behind her smile was fear. Detroit winters felt colder now, the aches in his joints sharper. Some mornings, it took him a while just to get out of bed. The doctor's warnings replayed in his mind. cholesterol high, blood pressure worse, weight creeping up. Still, he told himself, I'll deal with it later. But time doesn't wait for anyone. His friends from the shop started retiring, some passing away too soon. Every funeral left him quieter, reflective. He'd walk through the garage and run his hand across the hood of a car, feeling the cool metal. Machines, at least, could be fixed with new parts. Hearts weren't so simple. Linda started urging him to close the shop, maybe move somewhere warm. You've given this city your best years, she said. But Tom wasn't ready to let go. His identity, his pride, his entire life was built in that garage. Still, deep down, something was shifting. He began to feel the weight of time, not just in his bones, but in his spirit. Life was changing around him, and for the first time, he wasn't sure if he could keep up. When Tom finally turned 60, the years caught up with him like rust creeping across an old fender. He still worked part-time at the shop, but his hands weren't as steady, and the sound of engines seemed louder than before. The younger mechanics handled most of the heavy lifting now, and though Tom smiled and said he didn't mind, a part of him missed being the man everyone relied on. Linda had retired and spent her mornings tending to her small garden. Tomatoes, basil, and bell peppers lined their tiny backyard. She'd invite him to sit outside with her, saying, "You need fresh air more than that garage dust." He'd laugh, promise to join her later, and usually never did. The truth was, slowing down scared him. For decades, his worth was tied to work, to movement, to fixing what was broken. Sitting still meant facing the things he couldn't fix. The tiredness, the chest pain that came more often, the shortness of breath after climbing stairs. He'd visit the doctor every now and then, but each visit ended the same. "Tom, you've got to change your lifestyle. Less fried food, more fruits, more walking." He'd nod, then drive straight to a diner for a cheeseburger and fries. One winter morning, after shoveling snow from his driveway, he felt dizzy and sat down on the porch. His heart was pounding hard, his hands trembling. It passed after a few minutes, but it left him shaken. He didn't tell Linda. He just stared at the snow and thought about how fragile life had become. Tom was slowing down, whether he wanted to or not. The man who once ran on grit and caffeine was running on fumes, and deep down, he knew. The next breakdown wouldn't be one he could fix with a wrench. It happened on a rainy Tuesday, one of those gray Detroit mornings when everything feels heavier. Tom was at the garage, helping a young mechanic with a brake job, when the room suddenly tilted. His vision blurred, his chest tightened like a vice, and he dropped the wrench. "Boss, you okay?" the kid asked, but Tom couldn't answer. He slumped against the car and slid to the floor. The next thing he remembered was waking up in a hospital bed, Linda sitting by his side, tears streaking her face. The doctor's words were painfully familiar. Another heart attack, this one worse than the last. His arteries were badly blocked, and surgery wasn't an option anymore. "You need to make serious changes," the doctor said gently. "Your body's giving you a second chance. Don't waste it." That night, Tom stared out the window of his hospital room, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. He felt small, smaller than he'd ever felt. He thought about his father, about Mr. Dorsey, about the years he spent fixing cars but never taking care of himself. Back home, recovery was slow. He couldn't work anymore, couldn't drive much, and hated feeling helpless. Depression crept in quietly. He'd sit in his recliner all day, barely eating, barely speaking. Linda tried to lift his spirits, but nothing seemed to reach him. Then came the scariest night, a sharp pain in his chest that made him believe this was it. As he gasped for air, a thought hit him. "I've spent my whole life fixing engines, but I never learned how to take care of the one inside me." That moment changed everything. It wasn't fear this time, it was resolve. Tom decided that if he had one last shot at life, He was going to take it. And that's when the discovery began. One that started not with medicine, but with food. The turning point came one quiet morning about a month after Tom got home from the hospital. He was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a plate of bland oatmeal the doctor had recommended. He poked at it with a spoon and sighed. "If this is what healthy living looks like," he muttered, "I might as well give up now." Linda, ever patient, slid a folded magazine toward him, Heart Health Monthly. She dog-eared a page titled, "5 Foods That Can Help Rebuild Your Heart." At first, he chuckled. "Foods? Come on, Lynn. I've got stents and meds. You really think blueberries and nuts can fix this mess?" But she insisted. "Just read it. You've rebuilt 100 engines from scratch, Tom. Maybe it's time to rebuild yourself the same way, part by part." That line hit home. The article talked about 5 powerful heart-healthy foods backed by research from the American Heart Association. Oats, salmon, blueberries, leafy greens, and walnuts. Each one worked in its own way to lower bad cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and strengthen the heart muscle. The science was clear, and the stories of recovery were real. Tom didn't believe in miracles, but he trusted effort. So he started small, swapping bacon for oatmeal, white bread for spinach wraps, coffee refills for water with lemon. Linda filled the fridge with color: blues, greens, oranges, foods that looked alive. He also learned something surprising. These weren't health foods for fancy diets. They were regular, affordable things, the kind any Detroit grocery store carried. Still, old habits die hard. The first week was rough. His body craved salt and grease. But each day he told himself, "You fixed broken engines. Tom, you can fix this too." And for the first time in years, he began to believe it. Tom's healing didn't come overnight. It came slow, quiet, like dawn creeping over the Detroit skyline. He started his mornings with a bowl of oatmeal sprinkled with walnuts and blueberries. At first it felt strange, almost too simple. But within a few weeks, something shifted. The heaviness in his chest lessened. His energy, once drained by noon, lasted through the day. Even his doctor seemed surprised at his progress. Linda helped keep him on track. She'd grill salmon twice a week, seasoned with lemon and herbs, and make big salads with kale, spinach, and a drizzle of olive oil. Tom used to think healthy food meant tasteless food. But soon he was telling her, "You know, Lynn, this actually ain't bad." She'd laugh and say, "That's your heart talking." Beyond the food, Tom began walking every evening. Slow at first, then faster. Neighbors waved, some joining him. The walks turned into quiet reflections on life, on how long he'd ignored his body's cries for rest. And something else changed too. His mood. The gray cloud of depression started to lift. His sleep improved. He felt lighter, clearer, more hopeful. He even started talking about health with other retirees at the diner, swapping stories about recipes instead of repair jobs. "Never thought I'd be preaching spinach," he'd joke. 6 months later, his doctor told him his cholesterol was down, blood pressure stable, and his heart stronger. Tom grinned and said, "Guess those 5 foods did more for me than any wrench ever did." It wasn't just his body that healed, it was his spirit. For the first time in decades, he wasn't just surviving, he was living. If you've ever tried changing your habits or found healing through something simple, share your story in the comments below. 2 years have passed since that second heart attack. And today, Tom Miller is a different man. He still lives in that same little brick house on the west side of Detroit. But his days look nothing like they used to. He wakes up early, not to rush to the garage, but to sit with Linda on the porch, sipping green tea instead of coffee. They watch the sunrise together, wrapped in old flannel blankets, the same way they did when they were young. But this time, they're not worrying about bills or engines, just breathing, just being. Tom still visits the shop sometimes, mostly to talk to the younger mechanics. He doesn't lecture them about work. He tells them about life, about how he ignored the warning signs, how pride almost cost him everything, and how 5 simple foods helped him rebuild what he thought was lost forever. His fridge is now a mix of color: fresh greens, berries, salmon, oats, the same foods that saved him. He says they don't just keep his heart strong. They remind him that every meal is a choice, a second chance. When his first grandchild was born, Tom held that tiny baby in his arms and whispered, "Your grandpa almost didn't make it to meet you." His voice cracked. Not from weakness, but gratitude. Sometimes he still misses the rush of the garage, the smell of oil and metal. But now, he finds peace in smaller sounds. Birds in the yard, the hum of Linda's laughter, the heartbeat he nearly lost. He once told me, "If I could go back, I'd listen to my body sooner." But you know what? I'm just thankful I finally did. If this story touched you, like this video, and if you believe in second chances, don't forget to subscribe. Someone you love might need this reminder today. You know, every person I meet teaches me something new about life. And Tom's story reminded me that healing doesn't always come from hospitals or pills. Sometimes it comes from simple choices made every day, with love and patience. It's never too late to change, to heal, or to start again. Thanks for listening, my friends. Until next time, stay healthy, stay hopeful, and take care of that heart of yours.